Hi, everyone. It's Terry Bruce, and this is another 10-minute nonprofit evaluation tips. Now, this month, we've been talking about the conditions that need to exist within your organization for your evaluation ecosystem to flourish, and before you really start doing evaluation at any sort of depth and breadth. And these are things related to systems change and capacity building and change management that need to exist sort of in the culture and fabric of your organization, and that your senior management need to have a good handle on and understanding of in order to start implementing evaluation, or your evaluation efforts are going to kind of wither on the vine pretty quickly. Now, this week, I wanted to talk about the last piece that I have seen as a huge barrier to implementing evaluation, especially at the higher levels, that I call the fallacy of the magic fairy dust thinking. Now, this has to do generally with impact evaluation. So I just want to touch on it at this stage. And we're going to come back to it when I do impact evaluation. We're going to do a whole month just on impact evaluation, and we're going to go into this in more depth at that time. But this is something I want you to start thinking about and have on your radar, because these conversations need to start happening very early in the evaluative cycle in order to sort of address them and also set the tone and expectations for your evaluation work. So what is the magic fairy dust thinking, Terry? Well, it has to do with sort of the crosswalk in organizations' theory of change between outcomes and impact. And if you remember from previous month, impact is the cumulative effect or change in the community that you're serving of the work that you do. Outcomes generally are at the individual level. Individuals could be people, places, or things, right? It could be cats that need spaying and neutering. It could be bogs or wetlands conserved. It could be highways beautified, right? It doesn't have to be people. It could also be people. It could be youth mentored, number of people who need a GED, who got the GED. Could be people who got jobs, whatever it is, new mothers who got care baskets, whatever it is, right? That's outcomes. Impact is the cumulative results of those changes kind of at the broader community level. It's the problem that you're trying to solve at a community level and a cumulative level, and it's sort of the change that your vision statement speaks to, right? So for example, if we're offering a GED program in order to reduce the unemployment rate and help more people get jobs, leading to a reduction in the unemployment rate in our community. The magic fairy dust thinking is thinking that if you provide services to enough individuals, and again, it doesn't have to be people, individuals, right? You have enough outcomes, that impact is just a sum total roll up of those outcomes that will lead to a change in the community. So therefore, for example, that if we provide enough people with GED services so that they get their GED, the unemployment rate will go down. Right? And they'll get jobs, and then the unemployment rate in the community will go down. This is very rarely the case. And here's why. And this is, if I thought previous video was going to get rotten cabbage just thrown in my head, this one you're probably like, that's it, I'm out. What do you mean it doesn't happen, Terry? How rude. How dare you say this? So let's say that we have a community of like 75,000 people, right? And we want to reduce the unemployment rate by helping people get GED. We know there's a large number of people who don't have GEDs and they can't get jobs in our community. So we're going to tackle this problem by providing a GED program. So of the 75,000 people, how many of them are actually sort of in the workforce and, working? Like adults, not babies, not elderly, not incarcerated, actually in the workforce. So let's try to pick some round numbers, make this a little easier. Let's say 50,000, which is probably pretty high, but 50,000. They're not in high school. They're not kids. They're not babies. They're not incarcerated. They're not elderly, retired, opted stay-at-home moms, people who actually are looking for jobs and or working. 50,000 people in this community. Let's say we have an unemployment rate of 10%. So 5,000 people are out of work and want jobs, need jobs, eligible for jobs, can't get jobs. Of that 5,000 people affecting our 10% unemployment rate, how many actually can't get a job because of lack of GED? It's not going to be 100%, right? Some people can't get a job because they don't have skills. Some don't have transportation. Some maybe have language barriers. Maybe some are have unrealistic salary expectations, whatever. Like there's a lot of reasons why people might be unemployed, looking for a job and can't get one. Might have an hours mismatch, daycare issue, right? Like there's a lot of reasons. So 100% of people are not able to get jobs, not because they have a GED. So how many? So let's say even if it was 20%, like really high. So that means it's going to be 1,000 people. 1,000 people in our community need a GED to get a job. Are we programming our way through 1,000 people? First of all, like how many people are we serving with our program here? Like 1,000 people a year would be a lot. That would be a very big, that's a multi-million-dollar program right there. Most organizations that I know that I've worked with are not helping 1,000 people a year get GEDs. So how many people per year and how many years? Like if we were going to program our way through 1,000 people, how many years would it take us? Let's say we're doing 200 people a year. That's a lot still, but let's say we could get 200 people help that gets them a GED per year. So it'll take us 5 years to program our way through the 1,000 people who need our intervention. And the 1,000 people who need our intervention are only 20% of the people who are unemployed. So even if we program our way through all 1,000 people over the course of 5 years, it's going to still have a negligible effect on the unemployment rate, right? Like it's not going to completely reduce the unemployment rate, may not even bring the unemployment rate down into sort of the average, of other communities, other states, whatever it is. And it's going to take 5 years to do it. That's first. Do we have a realistic expectation of how quickly we can have an impact? Are we having a realistic expectation of how much impact we're actually going to have? And in addition, over the course of the 5 years, additional people are going to be dropping out of school and need a GED, or people are going to move into our community who don't have a high school diploma and need a GED. So the 1,000 is not a static number, right? It's fluctuating, it's going up and down, and it's probably going up because there's more people coming up from the bottom. So every time we program 200 people, and how many people are coming in to replace them and moving in or dropping out. So we might say it's going to take 5 years to get through the initial 1,000, but how long is it going to take to ensure there's no more people ever in our community who need a GED? Unless we're going to put up fences and barriers and prevent any more people from coming in, the number is never going to be zero. There's always going to be a need for these services. And these services are still only going to be having a negligible effect on the overall unemployment rate. This is the magic fairy dust thinking, is where we don't think through the actual bridge between outcomes and impact, where we think if we just program our way through enough individuals, the problem will be solved, or we will see an impact when we get to impact evaluation and we start measuring at the community level. And then we start going, why is the unemployment rate not going down? We realize, oh, we have not factored in the size of the problem, the number of people we need to program, and that our intervention is only addressing one small facet of a particular problem. So what do we do about that? Well, we'll talk more about that when we get to impact evaluation and evaluation schema. But for now, I want you to start looking at your logic model and your organization's theory of change and your vision and thinking through, have you really built that bridge? Have you really thought through how your outcomes and your intervention is going to lead to impact? This was a conversation we had at an organization that I worked at, where one day we sort of had this like, oh no, realization that we were never going to program our way through enough people. And additionally, we started looking at why is the crime rate not going down, and why is the median household income not going up, and why is unemployment not going down? And we started to realize that the people who were getting our interventions, once they got a job and were starting to do better financially, moved out of our community. They'd move to a community that had nicer houses or bigger yards or better schools, more community amenities. And so we started going, oh no, we're never going to have an impact, or the results of our work are never going to show in any of the common impact measures, such as unemployment rate, crime rate, median household income, because as soon as the people do a little better, move out, people who need the service, people at the bottom are moving in. And so there's just this churn of the people who need our intervention, and the need in our community is never going down and is never going to go down. And so we realized a couple of things. One was either we had to readjust our vision and realize that instead of unemployment rate goes down and median household income goes up, that our community was going to be a community of opportunity, or kind of an enterprise community, right? Like it was going to be a good place for people at the financial bottom to start digging their way out of their hole and doing better. And that instead of looking at household income and unemployment rate, we needed to look at instead stagnation, right? So if there was stagnation and a lot of the negative metrics were like going up, then people were getting trapped in poverty in our community, versus if there was a lot of churn and how many people were moving out, and looking at that churn and how many people were moving in and the length of tenancy, how long people stayed in our community before they were doing financially well enough to move out, then we could show that we were having an impact. Our impact is people were not getting stuck at the financial bottom. We were helping economic mobility, and we were providing a community that was providing mobility. But that meant changing our vision and our mission statement, because our mission statement was like making this place a great place to live. And it's like, well, by any of the metrics that you might use to do that, we were never going to achieve that vision. Or we needed to act on our original mission, make this a good place to live, what meant anchoring the people who were doing financially better in our community. That instead of just tackling GED and financial literacy and home ownership and credit scores and things like that, we needed to also tackle affordable housing, improving the school district, helping build community and having people settle roots and connections in the community, providing more community amenities. That's a whole different mission. That's mission creep right there, right? Like when a mission suddenly gets much bigger and you're doing all these other things. And we as an organization had to evaluate which mission were we going to go after and what was going to be our identity and what could we do. Alternatively, one of the other things we could have done is say, well, we're not serving just this community anymore. When people move out financially, do better financially and move out, that's having an impact on the regional economy and the regional unemployment rate and the regional median household income. And so instead of saying we're serving just this community, we have to view ourselves as serving a region. And we either need to partner with other organizations in the region for collective reporting and impact measurement, or we need to expand the scope of our target area to serve the region and not just this one community, right? So that's 3 different things we could have done to better connect our outcomes and our mission and our interventions and theory of change to the impact. But we needed to have that discussion as an organization and make that decision. And when we got to impact measures, that it was sort of cold water in our face, where we're like, we've been doing this for 15 years. We thought we were having an impact. We can't show any discernible impact. And we suddenly realized there was a huge gap in our logic and our logic model of how of the impact we could have doing the interventions, serving the number of people, and the geographic targeting of our work, that there was a huge mismatch that we'd never be able to fill, and that we were going to have to make some big adjustments. This often happens for organizations when they start getting into outcome and impact evaluation, starting to see the holes in your logic model and coming up real short. And if your organization is not prepared to have that discussion about changing your mission, expanding your mission, changing your geography, who you're serving, the number of people serving, the evaluation work goes out the window really fast, because everybody goes, we just want to keep doing what we've been doing. We like that. We're comfortable with that. It's manageable. It's what we have capacity to do. And so they sort of brush under the rug the magic fairy dust thinking of like, we just program our way through enough people, everything will change and be better, and choose to like not address it. You're not going to get anywhere with your evaluation. In fact, your evaluation will purposely be murdered in its nascency, because you'll be like, this is showing we're not having an impact, and we can't make changes to what we're doing in order to have an impact. And so that is something you definitely have to be prepared to deal with. All right, well, that is it for this week. Join me next week. I'll have a special bonus release with a resource for you to help address some of these issues and additional issues as well. So make sure you come back next week. In the meantime, I would love to hear your experiences, especially if you run into that wall of realizing there was a big magic fairy dust hole in your logic model, your organization's mission and vision, and what your organization did to address that. All right, everyone, I will see you again next week.